My name is Emily Ford, and I'm 42 years old. I live with my 46-year-old husband, Bob, and our daughter, Anne, who is 2. Ever since our daughter was born, Bob has been coming home earlier from work, and he spends his weekends fully devoted to us. I was surprised at how much of a doting father he's turned out to be, but I'm happy.
Hey, Emily. It seems like our TV broke again. Could you ask Bob to come over and help?
I have a sister, Julie, who is 2 years older than me. She's raising her 6-month-old son as a single mom. Since Bob is good with fixing things, he often helps out when Julie runs into problems like this. Sorry for always asking Bob to help out with my sister's stuff.
Don't worry, Emily. She's your sister.
Bob never complains and always helps when something comes up. I'm incredibly grateful for my caring husband. Plus, there's a reason we can't say no to Julie's requests.
I had him tested, and it turns out that my son, Ken, has ADHD. I can't believe that, after having a child as a single mom, he'd have a disorder.
ADHD is a developmental disorder. It can involve attention issues, hyperactivity, and behavior that's different from most kids. Julie started noticing something was off when Ken was just over a month old. His tantrums were so intense that she ended up taking him to the doctor. Right now, the symptoms are mild, but as he grows, he's expected to face more challenges. Difficulty sitting still, forgetfulness, and emotional swings. When the doctor explained everything, Julie was devastated.
How am I supposed to handle this all by myself from now on?
Since she doesn't have a partner, Bob and I agreed that we'd step in to help if things got tough. Julie was spoiled by our mom growing up, so she's not used to handling things on her own.
If you get hurt, I'll take care of it for you. After all, Julie is a girl, and it's okay for others to look after her.
Being the first child, our parents doted on Julie. In contrast, I was the second child, so they didn't pay me much attention. Julie, having been raised like a princess, often relies on others before trying to solve problems on her own. I'm willing to overlook this because of my nephew's situation, but part of me feels like she leans on Bob too much. Lately, she's been calling him for help more often, and it doesn't sit well with me.
Emily, I'm sorry, but the microwave stopped working.
Again? Didn't Bob just fix it last time?
But it's still not working. Could you ask Bob to come over again?
Julie has been calling Bob more frequently after work, and on some nights, he even stays for dinner at her place, depending on when he finishes. Lately, when I try to talk to him, he seems distracted. I had a bad feeling one day. Ding dong. While I was making dinner, the doorbell rang. When I looked at the front door monitor, I saw my sister, Julie. What's going on? Why are you here so late?
Emily, please. I need you to take care of Ken for just a couple of days, please.
Take care of him? You can't just spring this on me. I have my 2-year-old daughter, Anne, here too, and I need to check with Bob. Julie looked pale and said she needed a break, even if just for a little while. When I called Bob, he said that if Julie was feeling stressed, it couldn't be helped, and so, unexpectedly, we ended up taking care of my nephew.
There's milk and diapers in the bag, and a change of clothes too. I'll pick him up in 2 or 3 days.
Got it, but make sure you come back in 2 or 3 days.
Thanks so much, Emily. I really appreciate it.
Without even looking at Ken, Julie left. At that moment, I thought, Since she's raising a child with special needs all by herself, of course, she'd get overwhelmed sometimes and need a break. But 2 or 3 days passed, and Julie didn't come to pick up her son. To make matters worse, on the third night of having Ken, Bob didn't come home either. I couldn't figure out what was going on until I got an email from him in the middle of the night.
I'm leaving with Julie. The divorce papers are in the drawer. Please take care of everything.
What? This has to be a joke. I immediately called Bob.
The number you have dialed is no longer in service.
His phone had been disconnected. I called Julie too, but her phone was also disconnected. They had abandoned me, leaving behind the divorce papers and my nephew with special needs. The next day, I went straight to Julie's apartment, but it was completely empty.
Julie Turner said she was moving overseas because of her husband's jobs.
When I contacted the apartment manager, that's what I was told. By husband, they must have meant Bob. I contacted my parents, but they didn't know anything either. Tucked inside the divorce papers was a note that read, "I can't raise a child with special needs." Suddenly, I was left to raise 2 kids on my own, so I asked my dad to help me find a daycare, and I started working again. I tried calling Bob and Julie several more times, but I never got through. Unlike my mom, my dad had always been kind to me growing up.
Your mom and I are living on retirement, but don't worry. We'll help with 2 kids however we can.
My dad helped a lot, like taking the kids to daycare, and he supported me with everything outside of work.
That's so typical of Julie. She must have found a man who would protect her, even if it meant abandoning her child.
My mom's personality hadn't changed, and she was still saying things that made no sense. Dad, after so many years with her, seemed resigned and a little exhausted by it all.
If we were younger, we could do more to help. But I'm sorry, this is all we can do.
That's not true. I couldn't do it on my own, so I'm grateful you're helping out, Dad. If my nephew had been someone else's child, I could have placed him in foster care. But to me, he's my sister's child, and to my parents, he's their grandchild. While my mom was no help, I decided to raise him with my dad's support. Why did they run off together? How could Julie abandon her own child? Even though I'm angry with them, there's no one to direct that anger toward now. I'm fine. I can do this on my own. Several years have passed, and the kids are now in elementary school. I waited 2 or 3 years, but since there was no contact and nothing changed, I finally submitted the divorce papers that had been prepared back then and finalized our divorce. I considered hiring a private investigator, but with the kids needing money now, I couldn't afford to waste it on that. My daughter, Anne, is now in 4th grade, and my nephew, Ken, is in 2nd grade. As for Ken, although he occasionally behaves oddly, I haven't had too much trouble.
It's your turn now, Ken. Shuffle the cards.
Got it. Let's play doubt next.
Since my daughter was only 2 when Bob left, she doesn't really remember him. My nephew, of course, has no memory of the situation and actually thinks I'm his real mom. The 2 kids believe they are real siblings. They don't know the truth yet, but I plan to tell them when they're older. What surprises me more, though, is Ken's incredible memory. Anne has always had a good memory, but Ken's memory is just as sharp, even though he's only in 2nd grade.
Sometimes people with disabilities have exceptional skills in certain areas.
The doctor said during one of Ken's checkups. Though he occasionally throws tantrums or acts out, He's still sweet and affectionate with me, just like any other kid. It's not always easy, and I do get exhausted, but seeing Anne and Ken enjoying themselves makes me happy. Perhaps I am suited to parenting. And I found myself hoping for something from Ken's hidden talents.
Mom, the playing cards got torn, so let's go buy new ones.
Oh, they got torn?
Ken ripped them because he didn't want to lose.
Ken, that's not okay. You need to learn how to accept losing.
I'm sorry.
One day, when the kids told me the cards were torn, we went to the shopping mall to buy new ones. That's when someone approached us.
Does your children belong to any modeling agencies?
No, they don't. The person, who is a manager from a modeling agency, asked if Anne and Ken would like to try modeling. Anne, Ken, how about it? Do you want to give modeling a try?
We'd get to wear nice clothes, right? I'd love to try it.
I'll do it with Anne.
Since they seemed interested, I decided to let them model, but only on their days off from school. Both my daughter and nephew were taller than other kids their age, with great looks and figures. I told the manager about my nephew's disability.
That's not a problem at all. In fact, there are plenty of models and actors with developmental disorders.
The manager said, surprisingly accepting of the situation, which put me at ease. At first, they only appeared in small sections on the corner of magazine pages. However, by the time my daughter and nephew reached adulthood, they had both become famous Paris Fashion Week models, even appearing on TV. Then, 20 years after my husband and sister disappeared, something happened.
I want to go shopping for clothes today. Will you come with me?
Sure, let's head out now.
Oh, we're eating out for lunch? Lucky me.
It was a rare day when both Anne and Ken had the day off, so we decided to go shopping together. A few days before, after they both turned 18, I finally told them the truth about Bob and Julie. I explained to Ken that I wasn't his real mom, and that Anne and Ken weren't actually siblings by blood. But neither of them seemed too surprised. They acted remarkably normal about it.
Even if we're not related by blood, family is still family.
Mom, you're still Mom. And Anne is still my big sister.
They accepted it just as it was, and nothing changed between us. In fact, their reaction helped me more than I could have imagined. We had just arrived at the department store and were browsing for clothes when it happened.
Bob, you sure love to eat, don't you?
Julie does too. Watch out, you're going to spill.
I froze as I heard the familiar voices. The voices walked past me.
Mom?
Is something wrong, Mom?
I knew right away. The people who had just passed by were my husband and sister. They were wearing hats pulled low over their faces, but Bob has a distinct feature. 2 moles side by side under his right cheek. I immediately turned around and called out to them. Bob, Julie. Their bodies tensed up the moment I called their names, but they didn't stop walking. I ran up to them and grabbed Julie's arm. Wait, Julie, Bob, stop. I stood in front of them, blocking their path. When I got a closer look, there was no doubt. It was them. After 20 years, I had finally run into my husband and sister by chance.
Well, if it isn't Emily. Long time no see.
Emily, you scared me calling out like that all of a sudden.
They both looked like they were in trouble, trying to act calm as if nothing had happened. Seeing them after 20 years brought back all the anger I had buried deep inside. It's not a long time, Bob. You disappeared without a word. What have you been doing all this time?
What have I been doing? Just living a happy, normal life.
Why didn't you ever reach out? You both canceled your phones and cut off all contact. Didn't it bother you at all to abandon your own children? All the feelings I'd held back over the years came rushing out. No matter how much I said, it still didn't feel like enough. I realized just how much I had bottled up for the last 20 years. But then Bob said something shocking.
Did you dump those expensive brats yet?
Bob burst out laughing, saying the unthinkable. How could he talk about our children like that? My anger reached its peak. They abandoned their own kids without a care. I had raised them, but what if I hadn't been able to? What would have happened to the kids? I took a deep breath to calm myself and spoke. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't dump them. I raised them into fine adults. When Bob and Julie looked at our now grown son, they were stunned. Bob glanced at my daughter and looked shocked.
And this girl?
This is Ken, Julie's son, and she is Anne, your daughter. Anne and Ken glared at Bob and Julie with cold eyes. The two of them stood there, mouths hanging open. It made sense. By now, everyone knew who Anne and Ken were. They were famous models who appeared in commercials and TV dramas. They were the trendiest models of the moment, adored by young people everywhere.
This boy is Ken.
And this girl is my daughter Anne?
That's right. Is there a problem with that?
But Ken is the famous model, right?
And Anne is the popular model too, right?
I can't believe you raised these two, Emily.
More importantly, why did you two disappear? I asked again, while Bob and Julie were still staring at the kids. Bob finally opened his mouth, like he was annoyed.
I mean, you must have known about me and Julie, right?
What?
You were always so worried when I went to Julie's house. You must have noticed something was going on.
If you knew that I knew, why didn't you stop?
Well, Julie's prettier and has a better figure, you know.
It was true. Ever since we were kids, Julie had been the beautiful one, always getting attention. Compared to her, I am normal, not beautiful, and not cute. I think my nephew inherited all of my sister's beauty. My daughter's height and sharp features are just like my husband's. But even so, how could you just disappear without a word? If you wanted a divorce, we should have talked about it.
Yeah, but would you have agreed to a divorce if we had?
Of course not. We have a kid. I couldn't just say yes to that. And both of you, how could you abandon your children without feeling anything? I can't forgive you for that.
We couldn't help it. We were too wrapped up in each other to care.
What? You were their parents. How could you be so selfish? They knew I had noticed their affair and didn't stop, like they enjoyed the fact I was aware. To them, abandoning their kids was just a consequence of being too focused on each other. Even if I admit I'm not as beautiful as Julie, abandoning the kids for that reason is beyond selfish. The more I listened, the more disgusted I became, and my anger only grew. Then Julie said something even more appalling.
Besides, Ken had a disability, right? Anyone would want to raise a normal child. I couldn't handle it back then. But you raised him wonderfully, so it all worked out.
Wait, Do you even hear yourself? Julie looked at Ken and continued.
Ken, it looks like you've turned out all right now. You should be grateful to me, you know. You became a model thanks to my looks, even if I didn't raise you.
Julie, what are you saying? Apologize to Ken. Slap. Before I knew it, I had slapped Julie across the face.
Ow, what are you doing?
What do you think children are? They're not objects. They're human beings. You and Bob destroyed their lives. You're the ones who should be apologizing. I won't let you hurt them anymore. That's when Bob chimed in.
You say you won't forgive us, but you're not even Ken's real mom, right? So what's with all the fake mom drama?
Yeah, exactly. I'm Ken's real mom, so I have the right to say what I want.
It's actually funny. Bob and Julie, what do you even like about each other? You're both so awful. I can't find a single reason why you'd choose to cheat to be together. For the past 20 years, Ken and I have lived together, supporting each other. I've raised Ken as my own son, through every joy and every hardship. Do you have any idea how I felt raising them all these years? All I ever wanted was for them to be happy. You abandoned them without a care, so don't you dare call yourselves parents. I hadn't intended to cry, but tears began streaming down my face. After everything we'd been through, I wasn't about to let them act like they had any right to take the kids back. When my dad passed, the kids were the ones who got me through it. Even though we're not related by blood, Ken and I are my family.
Is that all? I do want to thank you for raising Ken. You did a great job in my place. But this little pretend family is over. Ken will be living with me from now on, so just forget he ever existed.
Yeah, right. Ken is Julie's son, so it's only natural. And Anne, do you want to come live with me?
That's a great idea. You've done your part, Emily. Now it's our turn. You can relax and enjoy your freedom.
It's sudden, but it's the start of a new family.
Neither of them showed any regret or remorse for abandoning their children. Instead, they acted like it was time to thank me and then hand the kids back to them. They didn't even ask what the kids wanted, just assumed they could force this change. Their attitude, treating the kids like objects, infuriated me. What makes you think you can just take them? I'm not giving them up, and if we're going to talk about living arrangements, we're going to respect what the kids want.
If you refuse to let him go, Ken is still my son. So doesn't that make you a kidnapper, Emily? Should I call the police?
What kind of people are you? Technically, Julie was right. Legally, Ken and I were unrelated. But for the past 20 years, I had raised him with love and care. Even if they reported me to the police as a kidnapper, I would still have all the happy memories of raising him. Seeing me hesitate, Julie pulled out her phone and started pretending to dial.
Well, I guess I have no choice but to call the police.
Looks like we'll have to let the police handle it.
She began dialing the police. But then...
What?
Ken suddenly let out a loud scream. I rushed over to him, hugging him tightly to calm him down. When Ken faces too much stress, he has panic attacks. He had been doing well lately, but it must have been the stress of today.
You're not my mom.
Huh?
My only mom is Emily.
Ken glared at Julie, starting to speak his mind. With a pained expression, he glared at Julie.
What's wrong with him, yelling like that all of a sudden?
Ken has learned how to live with his condition.
Oh, really? Well, whenever he has a panic attack, you can help. But Ken, you should know that Emily isn't your real mom. I'm the one who gave birth to you, so you should be thanking me.
Don't act like you have the right to say anything. You abandoned me. There's no way I'm living with you. And I don't even remember your face. You're just a worthless old hag.
Worthless old hag?
Even though Ken still sometimes has panic attacks, he's much calmer as an adult than he was as a child. He's a gentle person and never lashes out at anyone. Since he was only 6 months old when he was left with me, it's no surprise he doesn't remember Julie and doesn't see her as his mom. I couldn't help but laugh as Julie stood there, shocked after being called a worthless old hag by her own son.
I'll never forgive you for hurting my real mom.
Ken, she is not your real mom. Emily is just my sister. She only took care of you because you're my child.
Then Anne stepped in.
You two are so selfish. You're just strangers to us. You and this guy are nothing but strangers. Blood relation? You abandoned us and want to use that as a reason? How ridiculous.
Hey, watch your mouth, kid.
Kid? I'm an adult. Thank you very much. And besides, abandoning your kids and running off together is what a child would do. And now, after decades, you expect us to just live with you? Are you stupid? Even if we were related by blood, living with people we've never known is insane.
Bob and Julie blinked in shock, speechless after Anne's blunt words. I wanted to applaud her for standing up to them like that.
You've grown up to be a very cocky child.
And your dad is the company president now. If you live with me, you'll never have to worry about money.
No need to worry. Ken and I both make plenty of money on our own.
Well, if you two live with us, I'll make sure to take care of Emily too.
That won't be necessary either, because right now, our agency's president is Mom.
What?
Really?
Actually, after seeing my kids work as models from a young age, I became interested in management and applied for a job. When the agency found out I was their mother, they hired me right away. Since then, I've gained experience and eventually started my own agency, becoming the president of the modeling agency that represents both of my children. Like they said, you guys can live with them.
I wouldn't live with these terrible kids even if I were dead.
I want to erase the fact that this trashy man is my dad from my memory.
How dare you speak to your parents like that?
Exactly. We gave you life, and this is how you repay us?
Then why did you abandon me?
That's because
Spit it out.
it was because of your disability, Ken.
I don't even remember you, so I don't hold a grudge anymore. But what you did, abandoning your child, that's just as bad as child neglect and abuse. I'll never forgive you for that. Never show up in my life again. Don't you ever claim to be my mom? I only have one mom in this world, and that's Emily. After today, I'm forgetting you ever existed, and you should do the same. I mean it.
Ken expressed himself calmly, without panic, as he learned the real reason his mom abandoned him. Even though he now knew why, he didn't lose his cool. Julie, on the other hand, was speechless, overwhelmed by what her son had said.
And why did you abandon Mom and me? What was so special about this woman that you chose her over us?
Well, back then, I couldn't think about anything but Julie. Once you're older, Anne, you'll understand your dad's feelings.
I don't care to understand, and honestly, I don't remember your face enough to even hate you. But if you hurt my mom any further, you'll regret it. I'm erasing you from my life today, so you'd better forget about me too. Permanently.
Ken was glaring at my sister, and Anne was giving her father the same intense stare. The tense, heavy atmosphere lingered for a moment.
Mom, it must have been so hard to raise me with my disability, right? Even though we're not related by blood. Thank you for raising me all this time.
When I was struggling with bullying, Mom was always there for me. She helped me through it, always laughing and crying with me. I'm so grateful.
I want to stay with you, Mom.
I might get married one day, but for now, I still want to be with you, Mom.
The kids expressed their gratitude to me. That alone makes me feel completely happy. Ken, you don't need to worry about your disability. You are who you are, and I'm so proud of you. And Anne, you're such a kind, considerate person. You and Ken are my most precious treasures. Perhaps bored with our heartfelt exchange, Bob and Julie tried to forcefully drag the kids away.
All right, enough of this drama.
Let's go.
I said I'm not going anywhere.
Don't touch me. Let go.
From a distance, I heard the sound of several people running towards us.
Where's the scene? Over there. Please catch those two.
The police and security guards rushed over to where Bob and Julie were pulling the kids.
Hey, let go of their arms. They're clearly resisting.
What? I'm his mother.
Forcing someone against their will is a crime.
Me? I'm his father.
Not understanding what was happening, Bob and Julie were restrained by the police and security guards. A group of young people were showing the police something on their phones.
Stop doing things that Anne and Ken don't want.
Yeah, they clearly don't want to go with you.
Before I knew it, a crowd had gathered, and I was surprised. It turned out that some of Anne and Ken's fans had witnessed the scene, filmed it, and called the police. Bob and Julie were taken away by the police.
I'm their family.
I'm not a criminal.
Yeah, tell us at the station.
Bob and Julie turned to us.
We're family, right? Say something.
I'm her ex-husband, and I just want to.
But when the police asked, I replied, they're strangers to us. Julie became hysterical, and Bob started saying nonsensical things as they were dragged away, completely disoriented. Ken smiled at the fans who had gathered.
Did you all help us out? Thank you so much.
Thanks for helping. But could I ask you to delete that video?
The fans squealed with excitement, shouting, "Oh!" at Anne and Ken, and happily deleted the video, explaining that they had only filmed it for them. After taking some photos with the fans, we finally headed home, bringing our long day to an end. A few days later, Bob and Julie were released, but the incident had made the news. During police questioning, Bob admitted that while he had once been a company president, his business had gone bankrupt, and when he coincidentally ran into the kids, he thought of using them as a way to make money. I sued Bob and Julie for damages related to their affair and for what happened this time. The kids also filed claims, and in the end, both of them were left with enormous debts, plunging them into poverty. With a lawyer involved, there was no way for them to escape, and we even secured a restraining order, ensuring they wouldn't bother us again. Julie had intended to rely on her mom, but after her sudden passing, she found herself with no allies. Sometime after, Ken and I went through the adoption process, and we officially became mother and son. Nothing really changed, though we were already happy. Lately, Anne and Ken have grown even more popular and busier than ever. Next month, we're starting a new chapter and moving overseas to begin our new life together. I'm excited to keep seeing my family's smiles every day and looking forward to the future.